Hello, and welcome to Yogahub podcast, where we bring you conversations with some of the world's leading yoga and movement educators. In this episode, I'm chatting to Holly Husler. Holly has a background in music, including joining a girl band in her early 20s. And as that came to an end, she discovered the practice of yoga, which, as she says, helped her come back to her true self. She began teaching yoga, and her journey came full circle when she discovered sound healing, which she now shares with people in trainings and retreats around the world. We're very happy to be hosting Holly and her partner Adam at our Yogahub Camden Street studio from the 10th to the 12th of May. And over this weekend, Holly will be sharing some sound bath workshops, including sound asleep and manifesting with crystal bowls. You can find out more about these at yogahub.ie/workshops. But thank you very much for tuning in. Here's my conversation with Holly. Okay, great. So Holly, first of all, thank you so much for finding the time to record this podcast. I know working around babies and toddlers in particular is not always the easiest thing in the world. So very grateful that you managed to find the time. I'd like to begin with what I consider the most important question of the day, which is just, how are you doing?
I'm going to be honest, because people always say, yeah, great. Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm fine. And it's it's a very British thing to say, actually, but I'm okay. I am in my second trimester of pregnancy. And this time, when I was pregnant with Sonny, my second trimester was glorious. I was feeling really creative and just energetic. And that just hasn't happened this time round. And I'm putting it down to the fact that I have another toddler to look after. So I'm just okay. I'm navigating life best as I can at the moment, but happy to be here. Thank you for asking.
Good. That's okay. I think particularly as someone who has two young kids as well, it's important to, not feel like you have to pretend. I think particularly so because most people are so understanding. Yeah. Most people don't actually want you to pretend to be any better than you actually are in general, but when you have like young kids, but sometimes we maybe feel the pressure to be like, oh yeah, everything's amazing, I'm doing great. But to lean into the days when you're just doing okay is important as well. And congratulations, by the way, on the second pregnancy.
Oh, thank you.
I would love to, I guess for me, my experience with having like two kids is in so many ways it's easier. Because you've been there before, you sort of know some of the tricks, and
it's really good.
But then it's also harder because there's two of them.
Yes, yeah.
So you're gonna have that to like juggle with as well.
Yeah. How old are yours?
So my eldest is 3, and the youngest is 5 months.
Wow. Yeah.
And they're doing great. Two girls, two sisters. Lily's the eldest, and Marley's the youngest. And I said definitely second time around. You have that bit of experience. You're a bit calmer, I think. You kind of know, I said, some of like the little tricks. And it's magic having two kids, like two siblings, and seeing them already starting to get to know each other and entertain each other. And it's a really, really beautiful thing.
I can't wait. I'm so excited for it. And we're having another boy, actually. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having two of the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of, I guess I actually genuinely didn't mind either way. But there was, I guess, the positive to either direction, that if it was a boy, it'd be amazing to have a boy. But then if it was a girl, I have two sisters, and my whole childhood, I would have done anything for a brother. But it didn't happen. And so for Lily, my eldest, I was like, for her to have a sister would be such a beautiful thing as well. Yeah. So yeah, two boys is going to be interesting, but beautiful nonetheless, I'm sure.
It's a very masculine household, but I'm preparing myself.
So I guess a nice way to maybe begin would be giving you the opportunity, for anyone who maybe isn't too familiar with you at this moment in time, just to let us know a little bit about your background, your life up to this point, and I guess in as much or as little detail as you'd like to share.
Okay. So I guess I will start by saying I'm Holly, and I'm a sound healer, but I don't like to put myself in a little box. I'm many different things and experienced lots over my life. But at this point in time, that's what I do. I'm a sound healer. I help people to relax and essentially come back to their true selves beneath all of the layers of doubt and fear and insecurity. It's really been such a beautiful journey for me to just live a calmer, more peaceful and more centered life. And it's just such a joy to help other people to experience the same thing. So I will start maybe 10 years ago. I was in a girl band, actually, a really cheesy pop girl band, which was so much fun. It was just such a fun part of my life. And I'd never really done anything too conventional before that. I mean, well, I say that I went to quite an academic school, and I did do the sensible thing and go to university, even though I'd always been into dancing, singing, performing. And I could have gone down that route, but I think the school that I went to sort of pushed me in the more, I'm doing the quotation mark, sensible direction. So I ended up doing an English degree at university, but still found myself in all, the musical theatre production societies and all that kind of stuff, because it was really in my blood. And yeah, after university, I started a PGCE, secondary school PGCE, as an English teacher. And about 3 months into my placement, I was just sat there. It was a boys' school, and I was just watching them all throwing pencils at each other, and I just thought, you know what, this is not my calling in life. And I always just really felt this pull, to do something with music, but I just didn't really know which direction to go in with it. It's not like that was really nurtured in me much at school. So I did a bit of traveling for a while. I quit the PGC. I thought this is just not, it's not going to make me happy in the long term. And when I got back from traveling, I think I was only 22. I was having one of those sort of early 20s crisis and thinking, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? I'm back at home with my parents. I've got no direction. I've, quit the thing that maybe was going to be quite secure for me in the long run. And I had this really lovely moment, actually, of just daring myself to dream big. And I said to myself, it was a sunny day, and I remember sitting in my mum and dad's house in my bedroom upstairs, and I was on my computer, and I thought, what would I love to do more than anything in the whole entire world? And I just typed into Google, girl band auditions. And lo and behold, a girl band audition came up in London. I was actually supposed to be going to New Zealand the next week, back to do some traveling ski season with my then boyfriend. Everything was booked and paid for, visas done, etc. But I just felt like I just wanted something, I don't know, something different. So yeah, the audition it clearly said, last day of auditions is tomorrow, preferably looking for the last member of an up and coming girl band, preferably blonde, preferably around 5'5", preferably between 19 and 24, tick, tick, tick. And I was not a sort of meant to be person at the time. I wasn't on any kind of spiritual path, wasn't, into any of this kind of stuff. But for the first time, I really felt like that was absolutely meant for me. And I knew I was going to get the part. I just knew in my heart. And the boyfriend said to me, what are you doing? We're going to New Zealand. Like, why are you auditioning for this girl band? And I thought, oh God, we're going to have to break up, and I'm going to have to tell him that I'm not doing it. And anyway, long story short, went to the auditions, got on so well with the girls, and sang my heart out. And yeah, the manager called me that same afternoon and said, yeah, the girls want you in the band. So welcome, here we go. And that started a really exciting journey for me for the next 3 years. And yeah, we did some really cool things. And actually, hopefully your audience will be interested to know that probably the coolest thing we did was support Westlife, the Irish band Westlife, on their UK and Ireland tour, which was absolutely amazing. Got to play, the O2 stage and some of the really big stadiums around the UK and Ireland, which was just absolutely, I was living a dream, absolutely living a dream come true. And not only that, but yeah, if I'm honest, I was never actually bothered about being famous. That part never interested me that much. It was more about, I don't know, I guess doing what I loved. And I made best friends out of it for life as well. They were all my bridesmaids, and we still keep in touch today. So yeah, that was a very exciting chapter of my life, but it was also, it came with its ups and downs, like all of these things do. And it lent itself to quite a hardcore partying lifestyle, as well as you can imagine, and lots of sleepless nights at the weekends, and actually not really having any kind of relationship with myself, not knowing myself that well, going through all the things we go through as 20-something-year-olds. And at one point, it very naturally and organically came to an end. We just decided that it wasn't going to go any further, because our management team, without going into it, they weren't really working with us very well. So we called it quits. And at that point, I'm sure lots of people can relate, one thing comes crumbling down, then everything else starts to crumble as well. So I ended up breaking up with a long-term boyfriend. It was actually a different one to the one before. I'd been with him about 4 years. And, that was a real soulmate connection. So it was very heartbreaking when that came to an end, but I kind of knew that it wasn't supportive of my path going forwards. And I also decided that I was going to quit the party lifestyle because, again, that wasn't supportive of my mental health at all. I was looking in the mirror many times, just not knowing who I was, and just, I'd come out of the girl band. I didn't have any money anymore, so I didn't know how I was going to eat dinner, at night sometimes. I was living in London still, and I just had to say to myself, Holly, you're going to have to move home and start from scratch. And it was brutal. It really was, because I kind of lost everything that I really, really cared about at the time. And maybe that's a bit dramatic. Obviously, I was very privileged. The fact that I get to move home and be with my parents, and for them to help me out was, is really, really fortunate. But yeah, I went through a really difficult time then, and felt very anxious and directionless and stuck, and yeah, just not knowing what I wanted from life. And I did try to sort of make it in the music industry a little bit by myself, working with DJs and producers. But again, I was just sort of writing lyrics that didn't come from an embodied place of wisdom. It was all just stuff that I thought the audience would be interested to hear, and so nothing was feeling like it was clicking into place. I didn't feel that I belonged in the music industry, and actually felt like a real failure as well. So I said to myself, I'm going to quit music. And that was really heartbreaking as well, because that's what I really wanted to do, but just didn't know how. So yeah, again, I'm sure people can relate listening at this point when life feels really horrible. Often that's when you find yoga, or yoga finds you. And that's what happened to me. And a friend said to me, I'm just started teaching yoga, come along to a class. And I thought, oh, well, I'm a dancer. I bet I'll be great at this, front row, leg in the air. And then after a few classes, I realized it's not, it's so much deeper than just a physical practice. And what I was finding is, I was on my own for the first time in, well, I think I'd been in a relationship on and off from 15. So with different men since the age of 15, never had a chance to be by myself. So yoga really helped me to, just piece myself back together and actually get to know who I really was at the core. All my demons came up to the surface. I was trying to navigate all of this stuff that I hadn't really looked at before, lack of self-worth and self-confidence, and realized I had no belief in myself, and all of this stuff that I didn't really know about myself before, but I'd also really been craving, that real kind of internal deep dive. Back to sort of loving myself again. And that's the best gift that yoga gave me. It helped me to love myself again. Over time, of course, it took a little while, and many times crying in shavasana, like going onto the side, tears rolling down the face, but a really beautiful healing journey. And at some point, I booked onto a yoga teacher training, and that was a very deep dive as well. And that was it. Something clicked into place, and I thought, this is what I've been craving. Helping. As amazing as the girl band was, I never really felt like I was making a difference in the world, and that's what my soul was really wanting. So that was the missing piece, I suppose. It was, I'd gone on this real journey with myself, and now I was able to offer something a lot deeper to the world that I felt was really going to make a difference. So I moved back to London eventually, set up a few classes, and without making this a massive long story, somewhere along the way, I was led to sound healing, which for me, it really drew me in, because, I'd parked music. It wasn't something that was on my radar, but this felt like a way back in, but in a way that felt a lot more soul aligned, I suppose. So I went along to this sound healing session. And it was all the beautiful crystal bowls that were on the poster actually that drew me in. I thought, these beautiful beings, I have to be near them and see what they're like and what they're all about. And the experience was just so magical. And it was just, lying down, and these beautiful waves of vibrations and crystal frequencies washing over you and through you. And it was just peace. It was peace, lying down and connecting with myself. And the next day I just felt so clear, so at peace with myself, that I thought, I have to bring this into my classes. And I think I'd only gone once or twice before I booked myself onto a training, bought a crystal bowl. And when you just sort of go to these, you end up at these things and you're not quite sure how you ended up there, but some part of you has pulled you to these places. And before I knew it, I was playing the crystal bowls at the end of my yoga classes. I ended up doing standalone sessions, did workshops, events. People started to get to know about it, all online during lockdown. And now eventually, and now I'm leading trainings as well. So it's been this really beautiful journey of kind of losing myself and then finding music again, but in a way that just feels so much more aligned with who I am. And now I actually get to make a difference in the world through this beautiful practice of sound healing. So yeah, in a nutshell.
It's an interesting background. Thank you for sharing. What was the name of the girl band?
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to ask this. We were called Vanquish. It's a terrible name. It sounds like a cleaning product, and I had no part in choosing that name. If anyone looks it up, you might actually see some other girls actually, because we were replaced when we decided we weren't going to do it anymore. The management actually got some new girls in, and it was quite funny because he thought no one would notice, but quite clearly a different set of girls. But yeah, there's some stuff out there of us.
Okay. And supporting Westlife, that's a big gig.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing all that. So it's a very interesting journey you've been on, and I guess for anybody who doesn't really know what sound healing is or wouldn't know what to expect from a sound healing session, would you mind maybe explaining?
Yeah. So there's so many different directions I could go down with this question. So I always like to explain sound healing as it's this beautiful blend between science and magic. There's still so much around it that can't be explained. Obviously, there are more and more studies happening around it, which is great. More and more science coming to the surface, but there's so much magic that happens when you lie down and experience sound healing as well. And I think that it should be that way as well. I think some things shouldn't be explained. It's more of an experiential experience, I suppose. And that's another thing I say a lot. The best explanation of sound healing is really in the experience itself. So if you booked yourself onto a sound healing, you would generally go into a beautiful space. You know, I love to put candles everywhere and get the lovely scents out. You'd lie down on a mat or maybe a bed if it's a posh place and put a blanket on top of you. And that's literally where you stay, you know, for the duration of the session. And then different sound healers will use different instruments. So a lot of people, I'm sure, will have heard of a gong bath, where the sound healer will use a big gong. I personally use crystal singing bowls, so they have very different qualities. So a gong, it said, I don't know if I came up with this or someone else said it, but it feels that the gong is more kind of the shadowy masculine aspect of sound healing, whereas the crystal singing bowls are more, I would say, the more kind of light, feminine aspect of sound healing. That's my stance on it at the moment. So the crystal bowls are very light, very ethereal, but also very, very powerful at the same time. So it will just feel like you lie down and you'll just simply feel like these beautiful vibrations when the bowls start playing. Yeah, they wash over the body, and they also sink deep into the cells as well. The bowls that I play anyway, some obviously you get different bowls which are different quality, but the ones I play are they are top of the game, and they're absolutely exquisite, and you feel the vibrations penetrating through your skin, and they reach you at a deep cellular level. And these vibrations are essentially coming inside the body and working to find what is a little bit off key. So I really love to use this analogy of the orchestra. So if you think about the orchestra and you've got all the different components, so the keys, the percussion, the strings, etc., and you'd never turn up to a gig or a musical theatre production where the orchestra hadn't teamed up and got together and tuned their instruments, because otherwise if they don't tune their instruments, it's just going to sound like, you know, a bag of cats being slammed against the wall. It sound terrible, but sound off key and out of tune. So you can imagine the human body, yourself, as an orchestra, not just an instrument, but as an orchestra with lots of different systems. And ultimately, you know, in a perfect world, all of these systems will be working together in balance and harmony, because we are nature, and nature's inclination is always to come back towards balance and harmony. But in reality, you know, we've got all the different parts of us. We've got the blood, the organs, all the different systems, even our thoughts and our emotions, everything that makes up who we are is mostly not in tune, not in harmony. So there's always parts of us that are just a little bit off. And that's due to things like, well, life, you know, stress, childhood trauma, depression, anxiety. You know, we're living in an epidemic of anxiety at the moment, and depression. Even things like noise pollution, hanging out with negative people, it all acts to create chaos inside of us, and we don't do enough to tune ourselves back to harmony and balance again. So this is where sound healing comes in. So if you imagine, you've got a musical instrument, let's say a guitar, and you've got an instrument to tune the instrument, a little tuner. So for me, the sound bowls are tuners for the human body. So when all of the frequencies that come out of a frequency is basically essentially a sound wave going up and down. And it's the amount of times it goes up and down per second. So some will go a lot faster, some will go a lot slower. We live in a vibrational universe, so absolutely everything is in a state of vibration, whether you can see it vibrating or not. Some things will appear solid, but they are in fact made up of multiple hundreds of thousands different vibrations, vibrating at a rate that appears solid. So some could argue that everything is sound. So all of the crystal bowls, they are vibrating at frequencies that are in alignment with nature, because they are nature. They're from the earth. They're crystal. They're pure crystal. And they're here to support us and bring us back into alignment with our true selves, with nature, with balance, with love, with truth. So when you play the crystal bowls, these beautiful frequencies are coming out of the bowls. They're going into the body. And this is where the magic happens. It's sort of, they're rummaging around the body and they're seeing, I call them like the rebel cells, because the bits that are a bit out of tune, they're just doing their own thing. They're vibrating at a frequency that is not in alignment with harmony. And actually the scientific term is sympathetic resonance. So these beautiful sound waves are coming in. They're finding the rebel cells that are just having their own like heavy metal party over here. And through sympathetic resonance, where one vibrating object will create another vibrating object to vibrate in alignment with it, it will work to just shift everything back to the state of nature, basically, in alignment with the crystal bowls. And like I said, the proof is in the pudding. People will generally feel, not always, but mostly, you just go into this state of bliss and peace and relaxation. But I will also say that sometimes it's uncomfortable because it's healing. And sometimes I always think of the what they call those snow globes, where sometimes you go into these experiences and it's like you're a snow globe and you get shaken up and the sounds are kind of, just shifting things up, things around in the body, emotions included. And sometimes stuff comes up to the surface for us to see, and we need to process it and go through it. And it can feel uncomfortable, but the bowls are there to support the shifting of that and the release of that. And then hopefully, the snow drops down to the bottom again, and then things become clear after a while. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
It answers it really, really well. It's I actually haven't heard it described in such detail before. I've done sound baths. Actually ended up, funny enough, for something, I guess for me, a sound bath previously would have always, I don't know, felt like something you should be doing in person. It should be almost like going to a gig, let's say. But I actually found myself doing a lot during COVID. There was a studio here that used to host them quite regularly. And for something that maybe, I don't know, maybe sounds like it wouldn't translate into an online setting, it was amazing. And it also created this lovely sense of community during lockdown, of people kind of coming together to listen and to relax, as I said, like for the kind of sometimes chaotic world we live in. Sometimes that's the most healing thing, is just to give yourself that opportunity to slow down. And I guess for me, sound, as opposed to some forms of meditation, and then even maybe some forms of like movement, which depending on levels of experience or whatever it might be, those two things can be challenging in their own ways or inaccessible in their own ways. Sound sometimes creates this nice in-between where you are doing something, you're listening, you're present, but it's also very accommodating to, most people are able to listen and reflect on sounds that they're hearing. So it's a nice, almost like bridge point between passive and active. So it's a really, really lovely experience. And you described it wonderfully.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it, actually, because I think people feel like they need to be, meditation, just sitting there in silence, listening to your breath, can be really challenging, can't it? But the sounds are almost like a nice anchor that you feel like you're, like you said, you're doing something, you're immersed in the sound. So that's the doing part, but then you can also relax at the same time into it.
Yeah. And as I've learned more around like the history of yoga philosophy, like sound has always been such a central aspect of it, like chanting being such a essential part to traditional yoga practices, and obviously still in the modern day as well. I had a lovely conversation with T.S. Little recently on this podcast, and the kind of theme of our conversation almost was like listening, the importance of listening and listening with intention. So a sort of a purposeful listening, which, as you described it there, like in meditation, even if you're not listening to sound, you're listening to something. You're listening to your experience, and sound, I guess, amplifies that, for want of a better word, that this process of listening is so central to the meditative experience. Listening basically just being understanding, or like a search for understanding in a certain sense. And I think, yeah, as that kind of like little bridge point between passivity, I guess being able to like allow yourself to explore that sort of intentional listening with something external to listen to, is just a way of cultivating that skill of listening, which you can then apply in other contexts as well.
Yeah,
was that something that you kind of found for yourself?
Yeah, the listening thing is such an interesting piece, isn't it? Because I think people say, oh yeah, I can, I listen to people, we have conversations, I listen, but most people are actually terrible listeners. And yeah, with sound healing, I do say quite a lot, actually. You can listen with your ears, and actually hear the sounds, but the skin is actually one big giant ear. And obviously you're not hearing the sounds with your ears, but your skin is absorbing the sounds. And yeah, if we go sort of a layer deeper, because, some people have actually said that they've been in a massive room with me and they said, oh, I haven't been able to actually hear the sound bowls, from the back, because maybe I didn't have enough amplification or whatever, but the bowls actually go for up to a third of a mile. So I know that even if they can't hear with their ears, their body is still receiving the vibrations. So the body is still taking it in, the body is still listening. And I think it puts you in touch with it's like an internal listening, isn't it? So you can hear externally with your ears, but then the sounds invite you to sort of go to this deeper space where it becomes an internal kind of listening, and also a sort of self-inquiry. And then truths start coming up to the surface, and you get to meet different parts of yourself. Excuse me. And in some way, that's almost like a different kind of listening altogether, isn't it? It's more of a feeling.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's that, yeah, like I guess that just cultivating that skill of attentiveness, which is, I guess everything in that sense is like a type of feeling. Even listening is a type of feeling, because usually you're aware that you're listening to something because it's bringing up some kind of feeling, positive, negative, or neutral, whatever it might be. And I think for so many of us, in terms of like our yoga practice, we've all the different reasons we might come to it, but whatever kind of language we want to put on it, usually what keeps us practicing is that cultivating that skill of feeling. And as you said, like it's, a lot of us aren't actually great listeners. A lot of us, when we're talking to someone, we're finding ourselves thinking ahead, oh, well, what am I going to say next? Or what am I, and just being able to find a space where you can slow down and cultivate that skill of just attentiveness, whether it's through listening, breathing, moving, whatever it might be. It's just so incredibly invaluable, which kind of leads me on to one of the things I wanted to ask you, which was, obviously, as we spoke about earlier, you being a mother and pregnant, and which is such a transformative thing for anybody to go through. How did you feel like these kind of practices prepared you for that? And as I guess a follow along, have you found that your approach to the practices have changed in any way through motherhood?
Do you know, I honestly don't know how anyone becomes a parent and has had no kind of yoga practice or meditation practice or some kind of practice of presence. I mean, I've considered myself in a really lucky, privileged position in that, I've got a really supportive husband. We live in, a lovely cottage in England, in Surrey. Kind of everything's set up around us that feels really, really supportive. But it's still so challenging. And I've also, had a yoga practice, had a meditation practice, but it's still challenging. So I think, how does anyone survive having not done anything like this before? It's almost like you need to go to some kind of school before you're a parent. Like that should be available on the NHS. Mandatory. So yeah, for me, I'm honestly forever grateful. I mean, in so many ways for these practices, but for me, I guess it's, well, we know from yoga, it makes you, the more you practice, you, instead of just reacting immediately, it gives you that yoga pause to kind of take a step back and just come into that space of just taking a deep breath and choosing how you want to react to a situation. So rather than, shouting at your toddler who's reaching for something or, doing something, you take a minute, like, how do I want to react? What's the best way to approach this situation? And also I guess it helps you to get in touch with your feelings and why you might be feeling and reacting a certain way, and then doing the work to heal that before the baby comes along, if that makes sense. What else? Just surrender is a big one as well. That's a big part of yoga and sound healing as well. Really just trusting in something higher that is supporting you along the way, and then surrendering into that force and knowing and trusting that everything is going to be okay. I think that's probably like the biggest one for me. It sounds strange, but in a way, this practice has helped me feel less alone. It's helped me to feel, maybe it's a feeling that we're all, I know it's such a cliche thing to say, but that everyone is connected, and there is this sort of higher intelligence that is supporting the movement of the universe, of the world, and I'm a part of that. So I think it's helped me to feel less alone and more supported in a way. I don't really know how to articulate that in words. It's just kind of a feeling that I have. God, so many different ways. Patience, just generally feeling calmer. I'm so lucky that I just get to sit and play crystal bowls. It's just so calming and joyful as well. It's just like an anchor into being present as well. And then when you're doing these practices off on the mat, then you can take them with you off the mat as well. So yeah, just multiple different ways that it's helped me. And I mean, yeah, I don't have a practice so much anymore, because I always say my toddler is my practice now. And they do say, don't they, that the children are the biggest yoga practice of all. And, you can practice on the mat, but if you're not applying it off the mat, then you don't really have a practice and you haven't really, integrated the lessons. So yeah, he is like a big spiritual practice for me at the moment, and just being present with him. And, I mean, it's a case of just taking everything day by day at the moment. And that's where the surrender comes in as well, like not needing to have everything planned out, but just really trusting in the process of motherhood, and letting old parts of me fall away and trusting that that's okay. Learning to be okay with all the emotions that come up. So many things that are just blending between the practice and being a mother. Yeah. It's hard to articulate.
It is hard to articulate. And everything you're saying really resonates with me. Because when we were coming up to the birth of our first child, I remember my partner saying, like, you have to take a test to drive a car. But you can just go into the hospital, have a baby, and then it's just like, all right, see you later. All the best. So I'm so grateful that I was able to find the practices that have helped me prior to becoming a parent, because and again, the privilege and just the look that entails, because not everyone has the opportunity to learn these things for so many different reasons. And I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity. And for me, a big one recently was that, like, a lot of times prior to having kids, I kind of thought like I had things kind of sussed a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, I'm good, I'm calm, I'm present, I'm like, and then it only takes like, one little thing with like the toddler in particular, just be like, what the, and all of your calm and your presence kind of like leaves. And a big thing from recently is actually being okay with that as well. Mm-hmm. That I don't have to be perfect every second of the day. I got a little bit angry with my daughter a while ago, just over something like so silly, but I was tired. I just didn't react to it very well. And then what I could kind of feel was that I was almost beginning to then like pile onto myself and being like, why did you react like that? Why did you get angry? And like almost like making it worse in a way. And actually being like, well, it's okay that I didn't handle this perfectly. And maybe a better thing is, rather than getting angry at myself for not being perfect in that moment, is now, can I show sort of remorse to my daughter? Can I show her that it's, you know, if you're not perfect, you can actually make up for it through being apologetic, understanding, whatever it might be. And yeah, that was a big one for me recently. I don't always have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
But being able to make up for the times that I'm not perfect is just as important, I think.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good point, because we're still human. We always will be. There's always going to be times when we do react, and it's about not putting the shame on yourself, isn't it? And just take a step back. Oh, I am human. I'm allowed to react. I'm allowed to be angry. That's okay. But yeah, like you said, there's ways to just, make up for it.
Have you used, if you've used the right word, play? Have you worked with your son with the sound bowls, and how does he respond to it even at his young age?
Oh, well, this is quite funny, because obviously I played them the whole way through my pregnancy with him, and I was thinking, oh, he's going to be this super zen, like calm. Yeah, he's not that. And it's funny, you know, I thought, I think he was a few months old, and it was a rainy evening outside, and Adam was working, and I thought, oh, I'm going to give him his first like out of the womb sound bath. It's going to be so magical. And I brought his little rocking chair thing into the studio, set all the bowls up beautifully, put all the candles around, and thought this is going to be just such a magical experience for both of us. And got in the zone, started playing the bowls, and he just cried immediately. So that was the end of that. It lasted about 30 seconds. But the thing is, I can't really have them around him, because he just, and I do sometimes, I let him, you know, I hold the wand, I call it, and I show him. He is mesmerized, you know, when I have a bowl around in the house and I play it, he does sort of stop in his tracks, and he looks at me, and he is, it's like he's saying, what is that? And it does momentarily just sort of, I don't know, just make him pause. But then he wants to grab the thing off me and whack it really hard, and that's not going to happen. So yeah, it's, I would love to do more with him, but I think maybe when he's just a little bit older, a little bit more mindful.
Maybe. And doing it in, when you were pregnant, could you feel it more in terms of how it was impacting you, or could you feel it maybe having any effect on the baby, or how was that experience?
Yeah, he definitely did kick. I could feel him kicking with the vibrations, and it's something that's actually sort of a question mark with sound healing, because it is said that during your first trimester, it's not advisable to have sound healing, because the fetus is in a very delicate stage, and nature's greatest conductor of sound is water, and obviously the baby is surrounded in water, so they feel it and hear it a lot more intensely. So if anyone's interested in that, the answer to that question, I think it's, everyone is different, and I would just say, play at a distance, and very gently, if you are going to receive it or play the bowls. But for me, it was absolutely fine. And I think that with anything, if you're doing something with a really mindful and loving intention, it can't do any harm, really. And I'm just going to trust that he enjoyed it. I mean, yeah, who doesn't love a bit of crystalline frequencies being played around them?
I have a very good friend of mine. His name is Gareth Quinn Redmond. He's an ambient musician, and we would kind of do events together around breathing, and I guess it's kind of like breathing and listening, and he kind of gives the ambient score to these events. And my partner would have been at a couple of them when she was pregnant with our eldest daughter, and she said she would always find when she was lying down listening to the music that the baby would get very, very active. And it could be a coincidence. Obviously, you colour everything with your own ideas and stuff. But she was born on the 3rd of March, 2021, which was during a lockdown. So on the 17th of March, which was Paddy's Day here, RTE, like the national broadcaster here, we're kind of doing like live gigs for Paddy's Day. And Gareth was doing one of them. And he was playing one of his main songs, which, again, Lily in the womb would listen to so many times. And she was kicking around on the couch, and she was doing all sorts of stuff. But when that song came on, she again almost like froze, and it appeared like she was just really, really listening and like remembering something, which again might not have been the case. It might have just been coincidence that at that moment she decided to stop moving around. But it definitely felt like there was a certain resonance for her with that particular sound, which is really interesting.
Definitely think there's some truth in that. Yeah, because they know the mother's voice when they come out of the womb, and that's all just, something they've heard before many, many times. So that would make sense to me that she might remember a song. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So speaking of babies, I'm mindful of the fact that your child is currently napping and could be in need of you soon.
Aww.
So I won't keep you too much longer. The final thing that I would, the final little thing maybe is we'll obviously have you over for workshops soon. I think you're running a couple based around sound. And if you maybe wanted to give people just a small little preview of what they might expect at these workshops, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm so excited to come. We've come once to Yogahub before, and really looking forward to coming back. So Adam and I will be there this weekend. I think we're doing a joint workshop on the Friday evening, and that's Adam doing his juicy unlocking vinyasa practice, I think he's called it, and I will finish everyone with a beautiful sound bath. So that'll just be lying down at the end to receive the beautiful sounds, the crystal bowls. Saturday evening, I am running a standalone sound healing session. So it's an hour and a half, 5 till 6:30, I think it is. I think I called it Sound Asleep, and that is just for you to let go of your busy week, lie down, relax, and just enjoy a beautiful sound bath with the intention to help you relax and receive. And then on the Sunday, I am running a workshop, which is one of my favorite workshops to teach. It's called Manifesting Magic with Crystal Bowls. And this is exciting for me because I discovered that sound healing, yes, of course, so much of it is about healing ourselves and the world. But there's also another added element to sound healing, which is manifesting. So the crystal bowls are actually beautiful tools to help us create a dreamy life for ourselves. And this is, I've experienced this myself over and over again. So it's just so magical that I get to share this with the world as well. So I'll be talking all about that, how to create the life of your dreams with the crystal bowls. And that's Sunday 10 till 12, I think.
Sounds great. The workshop that yourself and Adam did, combining the vinyasa practice with the sound healing last year, was probably one of the most popular and well-received things that we had at the studio. So we're very, very excited to be hosting this again for what's sure to be a great weekend.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So thank you again for taking the time out of your day to have this conversation.
Thank you.
Really do appreciate it. And we're very excited to have you over soon.
Thanks for having me on.